The Revolution Podcast, episode 33, Clue.
Hi, you're listening to Revolution Podcast. This is Maria Howell as Grace on Revolution.
Golden Spiral Media presents The Revolution Podcast. Support for The Revolution Podcast is provided by listeners like you and our affiliation with HostGator. Not only does HostGator host over 8 million domains and provide powerful, reliable hosting, HostGator is environmentally friendly. Learn more about HostGator and their renewable energy credits by visiting goldenspiralmedia.com/HostGator today. Welcome back to the Revolution Podcast, everybody. I'm Daryl.
And I am Jeremy.
Wow, Jeremy, you got something going on tonight with your voice.
Yeah, Sam Elliott's did in for me.
Well, that's good. I did have beef for dinner. I grilled some burgers last night and had the leftovers tonight for dinner.
There you go.
So are you,
sounds good.
You pleased about that, Sam?
I am pleased about that.
Well, I'm pleased that Jeremy was able to come in, even though he's obviously having some allergy issues. And I'm also pleased that you've joined us. For those of you on the live show, hello, howdy, welcome. We're glad you're here. We've got some first-timers here for the live show. Always glad about that. And, Jeremy, I guess we should probably, before we get started, extend some appreciation and some gratitude for a couple of things. Most of you know that we are located in the Oklahoma City area. We record in Edmond, Oklahoma, which is on the north side, a northern suburb of Oklahoma City. Jeremy, you live in Yukon?
A little town called Mustang.
Mustang. I always get those two confused.
Yeah.
Which is on the west side of Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
As you all know, this week, Monday evening, Revolution Night, a horrible tornado came through one of the southern suburbs of Oklahoma City called Moore, Oklahoma, which meant that we didn't get the episode on Monday because all of the stations were covering the weather and then the aftermath of the tornado. So that pushed our podcast back a little bit. So we're doing this on Thursday night. So that means that the feedback episode, I'll push it out on Sunday. You'll have it first thing for you guys Monday morning as you go to work. So we appreciate those of you who arranged your schedule to be in the live show with us tonight and your understanding on why we had to delay the podcast. But more so than that, I mean, we got so many emails, tweets, Facebook notifications, any way that people knew how to get a hold of us, they did, and just checking to make sure we were okay. They didn't know, where we lived and if we were affected by the storm or not.
Right.
Several of you wrote in or called in and wanted to know how you could help, and just I can't express how much that means to us that you would, remember us, that we live in Oklahoma, and that you're concerned of our welfare and our families and our property. It means a whole lot to us. Not only you and I, Jeremy. People asked about Clint and Courtney and Jason, all the Golden Spiral Media family that we have. Jason does live in Moore. Jason was one of the original hosts of the Fringe podcast. Fortunately, he did not suffer any damage. I don't know if he has power restored yet or not. Does he have power restored? He was without power and water for a few days, but otherwise just fine. So from the bottom of our hearts, I want to say how much I appreciate the love that you guys expressed towards us and making sure that we were okay. So thank you so much.
I'm just going to reflect those sentiments.
Okay. Well, let's get into tonight's episode. The episode title was Clue. This was written by, and I hope I don't mispronounce this. I'm going to pronounce it Owen Lai. Do you see that in there?
I see it.
I don't know if that's it or not.
I would have been like, no, I'm not even going to. No.
Yeah, I'm sure that's wrong. And
I like Owen, though. I think that's a great spelling for Owen.
I do, too. If that's how you say it, that's a wonderful spelling. It's O-A-N-H.
Very unique.
And Paul Grelong, they were the writers of this episode, directed by Helen Shaver. So this was... I don't recall having her in the director's chair before, but I don't have them all memorized, so I could be wrong on that. All right, well, let's get into some news and info. Boom. All right, so not a whole lot of news and info this week. The episode title for the finale has been revealed.
Yes, it has.
Which is no surprise. When I saw it, I'm like, of course. Why didn't we predict this? Did you have the same reaction?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Well, before that, next week, as we mentioned last week, next week's episode 19, which airs on May 27th, is called Children of Men. We'll see if your prediction comes true, where we learn the identity of, learn the identity of Monroe's son.
Right.
And find out that Charlie is Miles' daughter. That was your prediction.
Yes.
Yeah. You could be right.
Yeah, I could be. And another prediction would be that it's the people inside of the room. But
that seems to be the other thing in my mind as well.
And the season finale, airing June 3rd, is The Dark Tower.
Yeah.
Which, again, is something we should have predicted.
Well, the Tower has obviously been a big part of the show.
Right.
Stephen King has been a big part of the show. We've all talked about how the Tower, the Dark Tower. I guess we just didn't expect them to just flat out name an episode The Dark Tower, but why not?
Well,
yeah.
I don't know. There's not a good enough reason not to.
Exactly. So that's pretty cool. The Dark Tower airs on June 3rd, as Jeremy said. Did you read the footnotes this week?
I did not, unfortunately.
I really encourage you guys to go read the footnotes this week. It was pretty interesting. That's over at nbc.com/revolution. Click on the exclusives tab, and then you'll see Aaron's footnotes. And this week was basically his last will and testament. He wrote in his journal, he's going to the Tower. He does not expect to make it out alive, and he basically says, whoever finds this and is reading this journal, please pass this on to Charlie Matheson. And he gives her some advice and gives her kind of hope for the future. And I can't remember who all he mentions. I think Nora he mentions, Miles he mentions, and just kind of gives them his last words before he goes off to die. It's really good, folks. Go check it out over at nbc.com/revolution. Click on the exclusives tab, and then you'll see Aaron's footnotes. So I encourage you to go check that out. All right. I don't have any other news. Jeremy, do you have anything else?
No, sir.
All right. Let's do the episode recap. The episode begins in Philadelphia. Nora is given a white dress and told to put it on. She is taken to Monroe. For 21 days, she is beaten, subjected to water torture, and given painful concoctions of drugs. She finally relents and tells him everything. The whereabouts of Miles and Tom, and that Rachael is going to the Tower to turn the power back on. Monroe starts to kill Randall for not telling him about the Tower, but Randall assures him that what's inside the Tower will give Monroe true power, and Randall is the only one that can get Monroe inside. Monroe calls off his goons, and they all board a helicopter and head out to Colorado. In Atlanta, the city is being evacuated, and Miles and Jim are preparing heavy military equipment and weapons so that when the power is restored, they can launch an all-out assault on Monroe. Suddenly, Dr. Sanborn arrives in town with Nora. She is heavily drugged and in bad shape, but alive. She is checked into the hospital, and Dr. Sanborn is interrogated by Miles. Sanborn tells them that Monroe is headed to the Tower, and Miles demands that he takes them there too. Using the amplifier and pendant Sanborn used to get to Atlanta, they board a helicopter and set off for Colorado. Nora checks herself out from the hospital and joins them. They fly to Fort Hanson to stop for fuel. The pilot is mysteriously killed and their helicopter is sabotaged. They initially think it is Plains Nation natives, but soon realize they have a traitor in their midst. They find a bloody knife on Jason, but he insists that he is not the culprit. Jason flees for fear of his life, and Miles chases after him. Dr. Sanborn sees that the knife came from Annapolis and realizes that Jim is the mole. Jim and Miles fight, and Miles is losing. Jason finds them just in time and shoots Jim. Nora patches up the helicopter, and the remaining team heads off for the final leg to the Tower. Meanwhile, Rachael and Aaron arrive at the Tower and find that Monroe and his army have already arrived. Rachael gives Aaron the journal that has all the access codes to get inside. At nightfall, Rachael kills a militia guard and steals his uniform. She calmly walks into camp and locates Monroe's tent. She steps inside, says hello, and pulls the pin on a live grenade. Good cliffhanger this week.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Quite the cliffhanger. I tell you what, we'll give our episode ratings. Let me play the episode discussion music, and then we'll see what our thoughts were. All right, I will go first this week, I guess. Mm-hmm. I gave it 4 meaningless moles.
I'm assuming that's a reference to the mole rat boy.
No, just they were trying to figure out who the mole was. So
okay.
Who the mole was. That was the whole premise of the episode.
That makes
big
sense.
part of the episode. 4 is extraordinarily low for me. Usually a low rating for me is like a 7. Very rarely do I go below that, either with my Fringe ratings or my Revolution ratings. So 4 to me is very, very low.
I think this is the lowest score you've given any episode for this show so far.
Definitely the lowest I've given any episode of this show.
Which is shocking.
Yeah. What'd you give it, Jeremy?
Well, I gave it 7 out of 10 live, but inevitably harmless hand grenades.
You think so, huh?
I do. I think the only people that are going to die are the red shirts in that room.
Yeah.
I think.
The people we had never seen before.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's no way that she can kill him right there. I think there's got to be something bigger before he dies.
Okay, well, you're getting to one of my questions I had already, which is fine. So one of my questions I wanted to ask you is, do you think that didn't take long to get those mixed up.
Well, since you said that, I'm going to finish your statement, then I'll get back to you.
Okay, do you think Monroe is going to die there with Rachel's hand grenade? And so you've already clearly said, no, you do not think so.
I don't.
My second question is, do you think Rachel is going to die there with the hand grenade?
I think she'll be wounded.
Okay.
I don't think she'll die.
Okay.
She has a device in her body that heals her.
Okay, that was my question. All right, so what were you going to ask me?
Well, I was just going to say, at the very end of the episode, I had to actually rewind it 3 or 4 times because in my mind, in my head, I heard something completely different than what was said, and I about lost it.
Yeah.
When she's in there, and he's like, Rachel, and she says, Bass. Like, the first 3 times I listened to it, it sounded like she was saying Miles.
It does, doesn't it?
And I'm like,
she does say Bass.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Because if she said Miles to him, I'd be like,
what?
Yeah. That would be
my
great.
first thought was that it was a production error. Like, she said Miles and no one caught it. But she does say Bass.
Okay.
But I'm like you, man. I had to go back and listen to it and listen to it again and listen to it a third time just to make sure. She does say Bass.
Yeah.
But it's just not very clear.
I'm surprised somebody else actually noticed that, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
But
okay. Well, we've got the notes broken down into kind of the different camps, but I'll say that all 3 camps now are at the same place, right? And by these camps, we have the Monroe camp, we have the Aaron Rachel camp, and then we have Team Miles. And so at the end of the episode, well, I guess technically at the end of the episode, Team Miles is not at the tower yet.
Right.
But they're on their way to the tower. So next week it's looking like all 3 camps are going to be back playing on the same turf again. So that'll be interesting. But for this episode, they are not. And although there is some crossover with Rachel and Monroe, let's start with Team Miles.
Okay. Well, I mean, it started out dashing everything that we had said we thought would happen, I think. It didn't necessarily dash it, but Nora lived.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was going to ask. Okay, yeah, she didn't die, and I'm glad. I think the more they can use her, the better the show is. And the show has killed so many stinking people. This week is not an exception to that.
Yeah.
They don't need to kill any more people. So I was glad that she was still alive. What did you think about the torture that they submitted her to?
Well, I thought... waterboarding, I think that's what that's called.
Basically, yeah. I mean, it's a variation of it,
right.
I think.
And that was pretty much it, I mean, for the most part.
Yeah. Well, they injected her with whatever that drug was.
Well, true. I don't know what that drug was at all.
I don't either.
I'm kind of shocked that they didn't try and do anything with electricity, to be honest. I mean, because her body wouldn't be able to handle that, assuming it's been 15 years since...
Well, I don't know that your body ever gets used to having, electroshock applied to it.
That's a fair statement, but I think I mean, I don't know. Maybe it was too predictable for them to use electricity on her, but I thought just the thought of that would scare somebody enough. They don't know what it's going to do to them. It's been so long, she might not be able to remember. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought that they did have the ability to do some sort of electrocution torture.
Yeah,
but they found other ways to torture her. I did think it was interesting that they went to such great lengths to torture her, where they had Rachael among them for all those years.
Right.
Maybe they did submit her to that type of torture, and she just never caved. So they stopped at some point, because we do know that they did some things to her. But
right.
Wow.
And I mean, she was in that. I'm assuming it's the same cell that she was in.
The one downstairs.
Right.
I didn't think about that.
It kinda
that we saw. Feel. You're talking about the one we saw in the kind of the
Giancarlo Esposito bonus.
Yeah,
scene.
webisodes.
Yeah.
I was going to call them webisodes, and I thought that was wrong, but no, webisodes is right. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so then we go back to Atlanta. Nora gives up all the information that which is significant information.
Sort of.
Okay.
I mean, I thought it was actually kind of stupid, because they're asking, well, where's Miles? Well, he's where I was when I was captured.
Yeah.
And he's working with Georgia, so he's probably in Atlanta. I mean,
I completely agree.
I didn't think what she gave them was
about Miles. I didn't think that was. In fact, I thought they already knew where Miles was.
The fact that they were asking that question was annoying.
Yeah.
Now she did give them the ultimate, super important. Rachel is at the tower,
which is clearly because of what Randall told Monroe about the tower. Obviously, became the primary objective at that point. Okay, so I think we're on the same page there. Atlanta is being evacuated. We didn't ever really get a real clear reason why. I mean, that we could make some assumptions, and it's not really hard to make up some sort of plausible reason why they are evacuating. I mean, attack is imminent. Their forces are weakening. Foster might have ordered an evacuation because that's the best hope for survival that they have at this point.
Right.
Any number of things could be true.
Right.
All of those things could be true. But we got the answer to a question I think that we asked last week, and that was, what are they going to do when they turn the power back on? Have they been amassing weapons too? Well, yes, they have.
Yeah, they had several of their own vehicles and what looked like some form of rocket launchers, but
helicopters and all kinds of things, which was convenient. Now we get that shown, and then just a few minutes later, what was his name? The doctor. I should have written that down. I had it in the episode recap. Starts with an S. But anyway, he shows up in town.
With
people are,
with a pendant.
Yeah, with a pendant and amplifier, driving and honking the horn. And I love that people are looking at him going, what in the world? How is he driving this car? Shows up with Nora, and like I said, the pendant and the amplifier, so now he can power one of those helicopters that we just got shown for the first time with Georgia. Worked out pretty conveniently.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things I didn't like about the episode.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying that they didn't plan that Georgia had stuff all along. I think that they probably did. It just was convenient that they showed it to us, and then the very next scene is driving into town, literally, the amplifier and the pendant that could power those things that they were like saving up for a rainy day. You know,
right.
It was weak.
Yeah, I can understand how you would think it's weak. One thing that I would disagree with here, though, is what's Rachel's mission? Her mission is to turn the power on.
Right.
They've had a couple of months to gather these items, expecting that the power would be turned back on.
Right.
So I can understand that they would have them. I do see what you're saying. The next scene we get him coming in, but at the same time, they did have an assumption that Rachel would succeed. Yes,
they did, and I don't have a problem with them having the weapons. It was just from the story's point of view, that was the first time that we had seen Georgia have the weapons.
Right.
So now that they need a way to get to the tower, and they have a guy coming in I just wish they had shown us those weapons a week or 2 or 3 ago, rather than just at all conveniently coming together at the same time.
That's definitely a fair statement, and I'm not going to disagree with it, but I just think that I don't know. I didn't take a whole point off of the score just because of that.
No, and I didn't either for that. It was the other stuff that we're getting close to.
All
here.
right. I want to see you getting close to stuff.
So the other thing that bothered me, there was so much that bothered me. And I will give my honest opinion. I am not going to trash the show. I'm not in it to trash the show. Let's just put it that way. This was an episode I didn't care for. I'm going to give you my reasons why as we go through. But here's another one right in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Nora looks like death when she is brought into town. She's in the back seat. He's honking, trying to get her there in time so she doesn't die.
Mm-hmm.
They take her to the hospital. She looks like I said death. Miles comes. She looks terrible. She can barely talk. Then the next time we see her, she's jumping in the helicopter going, "Come on, guys, let's go." How did that happen? Where did that come from?
She's doped up.
She was doped up when she could barely talk.
That's true. But, I mean, I think she was on that peak, that high, if you will, and then she comes crashing down. And that's even alluded to by the good doctor. I can't remember his name either.
Yeah. He did say that she was still high on the cocktail that he'd given her.
Right. So, I mean, people who are high on meth can actually take a lot more punishment than people who aren't. So
I don't disagree with that. It just seemed like she was
Sanborn.
almost dead. Thank you. It is Sanborn. Seemed like she was almost dead, and then she was just ready to go and kick butt and take names. And I felt like we missed a scene there where the doctors gave her something that made her, coherent again.
Right.
And maybe we did. Maybe there was a scene there that got cut because it just seemed like it came out of nowhere. It was too big of a gap between the last time we had seen her. So I don't know.
Okay.
But anyway, they board the helicopter and now they're heading out for the tower, which is in Colorado. Or is it in Colorado Springs? I think we got that confirmed on the map this week that it's in Colorado Springs.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll look that up real quick while you segue us into into getting in the helicopter and on their way.
Well, I was actually going to see if I could find out the distance from Atlanta to Denver.
Oh.
One of the things that bothered me,
okay,
since we're talking about what bothered us, and the reason I give it a 7 instead of an 8 or a 9, because I enjoyed the show despite some of the iffiness.
Okay.
Was the fuel in the helicopter, and I know we've harped on this for a while, and I decided to Google the range of a Bell UH-1 Huey helicopter.
Okay.
And so I did. Apparently, its travel range is 253 nautical miles.
Oh, that's not much.
Yeah. And I thought, okay, they can refuel, and I like the fact that they even explained that. And I was like, okay, I'll buy it.
Almost 1,400 miles. Now, that is not as the crow flies, so that's not nautical miles.
Right, but it's close enough.
So, well, because they don't have to go north and then west.
That, yeah.
So let's call it 1,000 miles. Let's be generous and call it 1,000 miles.
Okay. So they have to refuel
5 times,
roughly.
Well, 4 times. Yeah.
And they'll get there. I think that was a little.
And it is Colorado Springs. That's confirmed by the interactive map over at NBC.com.
Okay, so that's its range. And I thought, we can fudge range. I'm fine fudging range. But the thing that bugged me most was fuel economy. And I'm trying to find it to confirm it. But the fuel economy per gallon, nautical miles per gallon, is 1.2 miles.
Holy cow, per gallon?
Yeah. Its fuel tank is 211 gallons.
Oh my goodness.
And so they're siphoning this gas.
Yeah.
And they have what? At the end of that, 5-6 gallons, maybe?
Something like that.
Okay, you can go 6 miles. Good job, guys.
Hey, I can suspend disbelief on that. They got fuel. They all had a lot of tanks. Okay, they're not going to show them getting 200 tanks of fuel.
I understand, but
what bothered me more was that they siphoned this gas that's been sitting in a helicopter for 15 years, and it's just going to work just fine. We had the discussion on the fuel and what happens to fuel if it sits. And we said, you know what, maybe they've somehow refined fuel, or maybe they've somehow...
Right.
No.
But not this stuff.
No, we got the answer to that clearly this episode, and that was another thing that bothered me was clearly the fuel can sit around for 15 years and it still works just fine.
Yeah. So, anywho, that's I don't know. I mean, a nautical mile, if that's an actual, I mean, as the crow flies mile, or if it, I mean, I know it's a straight line, I'm assuming, but I don't know if one nautical mile is like 5 regular miles. I don't understand that, but it just seems like a long way to travel.
Yeah. Well, Zeppelin Driver is in the chat room for the live show, and he's called Zeppelin Driver because he's an aircraft pilot, and he says they always get aviation wrong. And he also says that 1 nautical mile is 6,100 feet, so that is longer.
So
than
it's just a little bit longer than a mile. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're here, Zeppelin Driver. Thank you
Indeed.
for clearing those up. Yeah. So I'm curious, Zeppelin Driver, did all that stuff about the helicopter, did that bother you as an aircraft pilot, or was that something that you were like, that they always get aircraft stuff wrong, so I'm just okay with, I'm used to them getting it wrong. How did you feel about that? Okay, he's interesting. He says he's willing to suspend disbelief on that.
Well, if the pilot's willing to do it, I'm just going to say, hey, they're good at fuel.
I'll do the same thing, Jeremy. If the pilot in the room was willing to say, yeah, okay, then we'll do it too.
All right. See, Zeppelin liked the show.
Yeah, he did.
All right.
Okay, thanks, Zep. All right, so now they are at the refueling station, which is, as far as I could tell, it's either a defunct base or it's a fictional base. I could not find a Fort Hanson, although I half expected it to be in Tulsa. That's where the boy band Hanson is from, Jeremy.
Yeah, we don't admit that there.
All right. But no, it was in, according to the interactive map on NBC.com, it is in north central Colorado, right on the Colorado-Kansas border. Like near Burlington, Colorado. In Burlington, Colorado.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's where it is on the interactive map. So
that's
I
a
think
lot further than I thought they made it.
Yeah, exactly. They made it almost to Colorado Springs. They might be able to get there on that 5 gallons of fuel.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So they're there, and now it was like the hills have eyes, man. It was like people just started cropping up dead. It was like every horror flick I'd seen, growing up as a kid.
Yeah. I liked, I guess, the guy with the eggs on his throat, the pilot. I kind of liked his discovery where she opens the door. She's like, Miles, the pilot.
Yeah.
And he comes over and he's totally dead. Yeah, so.
Yeah. He wasn't mostly dead.
Yeah.
He was totally dead.
Totally dead.
Yeah. Miracle Max couldn't save him. Okay, so I forgot where we were at in the notes here. Okay. So we start playing we start playing this game to try to figure out who the mole is. People start cropping up dead. You mentioned the pilot is dead. Who died next? Some no-name guy. We'd seen him in the helicopter, but no.
He's a red shirt.
Another red shirt. So 2 red shirts die. Now Nora is missing.
Right.
She's not dead. She's just knocked out.
Mm-hmm.
And we start playing the Who Done It game, and that's where the episode title comes from, right? Who did it with what and where?
Right. I liked that reference personally.
I liked the episode title and how it tied in. Excuse me. I liked the episode title and how it tied in. What I didn't like, and this is really where my episode rating came in.
Okay.
Those things I've talked about before. I'm not going to rate an episode down because those two combined might give it a whole point down for me.
Right.
But this, which they spent so much time, this was half the episode, where they're going around trying to figure out who done it, who's the mole, who's the one killing, and why, and pointing the finger at each other. And at the end of the day, it was Jim, and he's dead. And another character who we were led to believe was significant. When Miles took on this charge, he needed to go get some people who were capable, and Jim was the first one he went and got. And now we haven't seen Jim in 3 weeks. We finally get Jim back, and it's just so he can be a plot device to be killed by the end of the episode.
Right.
It was a waste. That's why I said I give it 4 meaningless moles. To me, it was such a waste. We spent half an episode stopped at this fueling station, pointing the finger, trying to figure out who it was, At the end of the day, it was a character that we had all forgotten about anyway because we hadn't seen him in 3 weeks, even though he was so important. And now he's dead, so he isn't important anymore because he's dead.
Yeah.
We didn't go anywhere. We didn't get anywhere with that storyline. With Team Miles, we got closer to Colorado, and that was it.
Well, I think we also got the distrust that's built between them.
I will agree with that, and I will strongly agree with that. And I think I've got some things I want to talk about on that. Mm-hmm. But, gosh, we could have done that in some sort of more meaningful way where at the end of the episode we haven't lost another character that I thought was important.
But we couldn't have named it Clue.
I don't care. I know you're being silly, but
I know.
Anyway, this was why I rated it so far down. I just couldn't get through that. I just thought it was a waste of time, a waste of half of an episode.
Mm-hmm. Well, I kind of got a kick out of it. I mean, the whole Clue theme. I thought the only two people I never actually suspected were Charlie and Jason, and I guess Miles.
And Miles, yeah.
But, I mean, Jason was obviously too obvious.
I didn't think Jason was it at all. I thought Tom was it because that's what I had predicted last week. Yeah. And I know they wanted us to think that Tom was it. And like I said last week, it's not. Sometimes it is the obvious answer. And I really thought it was going to be him. And I guess I fell for it. But I will tell you this, though. This came in after the Rev Twit poll last week. Remember, our Rev Twit poll last week was Who's the Mole? This came in after we recorded the show. But before this week's episode aired, so you can't go back and hear it in the episode from last week. But Hetrix211 correctly predicted in his response last week that it would be Jim.
Yeah.
So shout out to you, good job. Okay, but let's talk about, because we did get some character development in the midst of all the nothingness of this element of who trusts who. Because really, when the pressure is on.
Mm-hmm.
And there's murder at stake.
Right.
The people's true feelings really did come out, didn't they?
Yeah. And I really liked that, like, Tom, just after saving his son last week, which I guess was almost a month ago in story time, I mean, he thinks his son did it, and it's just like, I don't know, I thought that was kind of interesting. He's willing to accuse him, but when Miles pulls his weapon, or tries to, Tom stops him. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, Tom may know his son is the killer. In his head, this is what's going through his head. I know my son killed these guys, but I still don't want to kill him. I thought that was kind of interesting that he made that decision. I don't know, Miles being Miles, that was always fun. I'm surprised he got beat up so much, to tell you the truth.
By Jim?
Yeah.
He's gotten beat up a couple of times, but not very often. Mm-hmm. Very rare. In fact, the last time I think he got beat up was when they got to Atlanta and were trying to get the nuke from the other guy. And again, it was Alec, if I remember right, and it was a guy that he had trained, just like he had trained Jim.
Right.
So I guess if you've been trained by Miles, then you can stand toe-to-toe with him, which, okay, I could go for that. You know, and we also got the obvious trust issues now between Jason and Charlie. You know, their relationship started budding last week. We saw them do another little smoochy face at the first part of this episode, and now I don't know where they stand because they obviously have some trust issues, which I think are spot on. She has every reason to not trust him. He hasn't exactly been honest with her from the very beginning.
Right.
And they're really just now starting to get to know each other. So that seemed very realistic to me.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I think that he's being a little Hanson there. I guess that's the boy band we're going for the reference on.
I guess so.
I don't know. He's kind of almost seems to be whiny. He's kind of going into that Twilight role that he's familiar with. So,
you think so? Oh, I didn't think so.
I don't know. I think Charlie has the right to be upset with him. I don't think he has the right to be upset with her, just because. I mean, first of all, she wasn't that swayed by all of the evidence for that long anyway.
Well, and didn't he say when they were getting back into the helicopter that he had lied to her and he could understand why she felt that way?
Well, he said it in kind of a smug fashion, I thought. So.
Okay. Well, I didn't take it as smug, but
okay.
I was pretty pleased with what they did with their relationship.
Okay.
What did you think about the Miles and Nora, where he was just convinced against everybody that it could not have been Nora?
Well, he likes her,
Yeah.
and I think that didn't. To me, it only showed that he likes her. I mean, he has strong feelings for her.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't think that's anything new for me, personally. I think that I expected him to come to her defense. At the same time, I don't think that everybody else should have been so quick to jump on her case. But at the same time, it's understandable. I mean, I don't know.
Well, it was
from what we showed.
It was an interesting plot thing that they threw out there with the drugs that are in her system. You know, they kind of threw that out there, and so she wasn't even sure at some point whether she murdered the people or not. Hey, Miles and Nora have been through a lot together. They have a long history together. They obviously have fought side by side for a long time and have reason to trust each other.
Right.
I thought everyone else kind of bagged on her a little heavily too. I mean, they had a bag on somebody. I mean, that's what happens once you start getting some sort of, in a situation like that where it seems plausible that somebody could have done it, you know, particularly the guy who did do it, he's going to exploit that plausibility, and everyone's going to kind of start bagging on there too.
Create that distrust.
So, that was okay too. I did feel like, though, that Miles probably should have defended Charlie as heavily as he did Nora. Not that Charlie was attacked as much as Nora was.
Right.
So I guess that's why. I don't know. It just seemed a little unbalanced. Like he...
Yeah. I think he would have if Charlie had been attacked.
Yeah.
And after all, she is his daughter, right?
I think so.
So.
Yeah. But it was interesting. And I know that was the whole point. The whole point wasn't this whodunit. It was to really put these characters under pressure and see what their feelings really are about each other. And I did appreciate that. I'm tired of bringing somebody into the story just so they can be dead by the end of the episode. And I know Jim got a couple of episodes, but he was made out to be this really important character that Miles needed by his side, fighting hand in hand with him.
Right. Well, I think, though, that, I mean, that shows us, I don't know, that Miles, while he did have some loyalty, I mean, he's lost a lot of trust, and he's in a lot of the same position that Monroe is in with running people off. I mean, Miles not necessarily in the same fashion, but the guy's willing to turn on you, so
yeah,
I don't know.
Well, and I don't blame Jim. I mean, look, if they've got your wife and that's your only chance of hoping to get back with her, I mean, we've seen that happen time and time again. You're going to do whatever you can for your family.
Yeah.
And what he said to Miles when they were leaving Atlanta, he told Miles, you better put a dress on because my wife won't have anything to do with me now after you got me into this sort of thing. You can understand why he would feel the way he did.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
And that was a huge clue that he was the mole. I missed that. I was trying to watch it. We got preempted here in Oklahoma City, and I was trying to watch it online.
Right.
And it was a terrible website that I was trying to watch it through. And I should have just waited till Tuesday.
Yeah.
Because when I watched it on Tuesday, I caught so many things that I didn't catch the first time through, and that was one of those things. I completely missed that line. It was a huge clue that he was not happy with Miles,
right? And
there was a lot of animosity there. Huge clue that he was the mole.
Yeah, I think at the same time, I didn't think they had captured his wife.
You thought it was a lie?
No. Like, when he says put the dress on, I think at this point I'm making the assumption he's not had contact with his wife. So, obviously, he can be upset with Miles. But
I got you. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So the fact that he still probably hadn't had contact with his wife, but that that she's been captured, I think, was something that, I don't know, makes it, to me, it's a stronger motive than just because Miles tore him away from his wife. Sort of. Because there's always a chance to get back with your wife if she's alive.
Right. No hope for that now because he's not alive.
So she's dead.
Yeah, so Jason shot him dead. And it looked to me like Tom was just going to look on until either Miles or Jim was dead, but he was not going to intervene on Miles' behalf.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. And I kind of thought it was interesting that it looked to me like Jason is in a position to hit the bad guy, and right behind that is Tom. So if you're not making sure your target is, I mean,
if he'd have missed,
clear, if he'd have missed, or if the bullet had penetrated and gone through, He just shot his dad. Maybe he wanted to do that.
If he had that Desert Eagle, it probably would have gone through and through.
It depends on the ammo, but yeah, I think that, I don't know. It's kind of interesting that, yeah, maybe the show people just didn't choreograph that the way I would expect them to. But at the same time, it makes me wonder: did they? Mm-hmm. Did they completely understand?
Well,
what they
the
were
way
doing?
that Jason walked up to him, and we don't hear if they exchanged words. We didn't get any idea what they were, but they definitely looked each other up and down. You know, there was some machismo going right there,
right,
between those two. So, yeah. The last thing I'll say about the Team Miles storyline is, and again, I'm totally willing to suspend disbelief on this, but the pilot is dead. Sanborn is dead. The other red shirt guy are dead. Well, Sanborn was the guy that was telling him where the tower was. So now, I guess along the way he told him where it was. Not only just, hey, it's in Colorado Springs. I mean, Colorado Springs is a big place, and it certainly isn't in the middle of Colorado Springs. You almost need a GPS location if you don't know exactly where it is. Yeah. So now they're all heading there. Okay, the guy who actually knew where it was is now dead, but they're going to find it anyway next week. I'm convinced of that. Yeah. It just seems like a little bit of a hole, but I'm not going to spend any time. I'm not going to beat up the episode for that. That's just, for whatever reason, I'm willing to accept that. After I didn't accept so much other stuff. All right, let's move on, unless you have anything else on the Team Miles stuff.
I think that's all I can think of now. I'll let you know if something pops in.
Okay, well, let's go on to Team Rachael. And, we didn't get a whole lot with her and Aaron this week. We did learn that the tower is in Colorado Springs. And then the little thing that bothered me, she and Aaron she's told Aaron that she's got to go. She's going to go down there. She's going to kill Monroe. She gives Aaron the book. It's got the override codes in it. Right. All that's good information. Right. We get her explanation, her motive, what's driving her. I loved that. Right. Then we get this stupid Monroe militiaman who walks upon this fire that's clearly still warm because it's smoking and smoldering, and he stoops down and puts his hand above it like, is this still warm? How fresh is this fire? I don't know. Which allows her to get the jump on him. She strangles him with the belt. It was just a plot device so he could be in a vulnerable position. It was just, come on, who's that stupid?
Red shirts.
Exactly.
I think that when I saw the fire at first, I didn't see smoke. So to me, I kind of just inferred, well, when he bends over, he sees it, then he sees the smoke. Yeah. So. And
maybe he didn't. It's not a big deal. It just was another thing that bothered me. By this point in the episode, I'm like, so many things in this episode are bothering me. Maybe I was in a bad mood because I was having to watch it on some stupid website. I don't know. And then we get the glimpse in the tower. We kind of get this, I guess. There's some... I'm getting ahead of myself. Excuse me. Well, really, my next questions on the Team Rachael thing was what we already talked about. Is Rachael dead? Is...
Monroe.
Thank you. Monroe dead.
Right.
I say no on both of those as well. She might be injured. Mm-hmm. She had that thing firmly in her hand. I don't know how long a grenade, once you spring it, I don't know how long it goes before it blows up. I have no idea. I don't know if anyone in our chat room has any idea on what the mechanism, how it responds to that.
I always thought it was like 6 to 10 seconds. But
yeah. Got a couple of people typing here. We'll see if they give us an answer. 10 seconds is what somebody's saying. Yeah, that could be true. Which 10 seconds is enough time to get some distance away. Right. But you got to get it out of her. I was going to say her cold dead hand. It's not cold dead yet, but I mean she was gripped on that thing pretty good.
It won't really be much of a hand after the end either.
No, so. I don't think even nanites can heal your hand if it's holding a live grenade when it detonates.
That would be interesting to see if they can.
Yeah.
I like this scene because of the obvious reference in this scene. I guess you're not really picking up on the reference.
I'm not sure which one what you're talking about.
She's holding the grenade. Uh-huh. It's a thermal detonator, man. So she's in Jabba's palace.
Oh. No.
I mean, that was screaming that reference to me. I'm like, wow.
Now that you mention it, yes, of course it is. Yes.
So I thought,
she's in in disguise even.
Yeah. So, I mean, now they're not really going to have a real cordial talk at this moment. I think once you release the lever, I don't even know what to call that, on the grenade, I think it's really no turning back. So
I think no. There's no stopping the grenade from exploding at this point. It's just a matter of who is going to be killed, who's going to be injured, and how severely will they be injured. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Rachael and Monroe severely injured, or at least significantly injured. But I don't think either of them will die from this. So there'll be a way that they, someone will come up behind Rachael and tackle her, and their grenade will come out of her hand and roll off to the side, and it'll be enough where they both get wounded but not killed. That's all it will take.
Yeah, well, there's also another theory, and it's somebody from the future comes back and and prevents her from doing this.
Herself?
Yes.
I was just kidding.
Without a hand. So,
she's like, I gotta hand it to you, Rachael. I wouldn't do this if I were
Yeah. So, hey.
Jeremy.
I had to get it in there.
It took longer this week than it did last week. Was like right out of the gate.
Yeah, well, and Jim was getting a little impatient. Well,
there he goes. So. I was going to say, I bet Jim in the chat room will like that. And I look into the chat room, and he has already commented that he approves.
Yeah. Hey, Zeppelin is in on this one, too. So
yeah.
All right.
Well, okay. That's a fun theory. I'll give you that one.
Oh, Jim says the people from the tower are from the future.
Okay, let's get into that.
I love that.
Let's get into that. That's really all I had on the Rachael story. There wasn't a whole lot there. And there was some crossover, obviously, with the Monroe.
Yeah.
So let's just start right there since it's been brought up. Who are the people in the tower? That is our Rev Twit question of the week. But I tell you what, I'm feeling nice. Since it was just brought up, we'll go ahead and respond to it now. Who do you think they are?
Well, I had no idea. I mean, I'm watching this episode, and level 7, are they the nanite bots or whatever that we were kind of thinking of? They're kind of a Stargate SG-1 replicators. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
I did see Richard Dean Anderson over the weekend.
He was there?
He was there. I saw him with my own eyes.
I would have loved his autograph.
I didn't talk to him or anything. He was about 30 or 40 feet away.
Yeah. All right. So, anywho, I think that they could be humans made from nanites. At the same time, they could be humans that were experimented on. But I think my favorite idea now is that they're from the future. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jim in Wisconsin.
All right. Here's my theory on them. And I've gotten so many things right. Excuse me. That's not at all what I meant to say.
You got that wrong too, Daryl.
I did. There's all the evidence you need. I've gotten so many things wrong on my predictions with this show, including my prediction that Tom was the mole. This is probably, like, if this is your theory, just curse me because it won't happen now. But my theory is that this is a DOD structure.
Right.
The DOD program. The president wasn't even fully aware of what was going on there. Cool. I have no problem with any of that.
Okay.
My thought is that these were soldiers that were injured on the battlefield.
Did they go by the 18?
You know what? Maybe.
Right.
But they were injured in battle, and they were signed up for some sort of government program that would rehabilitate them and make them into some sort of super soldier. And I know that plot line has been used in so many other movies out there. Yeah. You don't have to look very far for that type of plot line. But that's what I'm going to say. Which to me, when you say that then makes you go, well, then is Randall's son one of those?
Right. Children of men.
I don't think so. I know, and it could be. It very well could be. But I'm going to say no, Randall's son was dead. I mean, he was delivered the news that he was dead, and that's what motivated him to do things. I'm going to say that Randall's son is still dead. But man, it wouldn't surprise me if his son it was revealed that his son is one of those.
Right.
But that's what I think. I think they've been mutated, if you will, or manipulated in some way where they do have some sort of extraordinary abilities. And like I said, you can find that plot in a whole lot of movies that you and I both love. You don't have to look very far, but that's what I'm thinking is going on there.
Right. I think that's definitely very plausible and definitely very believable.
Mm-hmm.
Might be your best theory yet.
Oh, so, better than time travel?
Hey, as long as you don't agree with me with time travel, you can't be right or you can't make me wrong.
I might go back in time and come up with a time travel theory before you did.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
All right. Okay, so that's cool. That's our Rev Twit question, as I said. So we'll get a lot of responses to who those people were in the tower. But to me, that was the coolest thing about the entire episode. That and the cliffhanger. Those were like the two things that I will look back on this episode and go, man, those were two cool things that happened. I loved was the 7 people that were in the tower looking at the video monitors and the Rachael grenade cliffhanger. Now, before we got to the tower, though, we had a great scene back in Philly when Monroe learns via Nora that there's a place called the Tower that Randall had not told him anything about. It's very significant. Rachael is there, and Randall is about to pay for that lack of sharing information with his life.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of changed the dynamic between the boys, didn't it?
A bit. I still don't think Randall was out of control. As in, I think he could have pulled off a slip out of the grasp of Monroe and kill him.
Hey, you never know. He could have pulled a gizmo out of his pocket,
right,
like the good Dr. Warren did to burn those guys. I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think, too, though, that might have been his card, his ace in the hole. You know, he's not playing all of his cards yet. And so he knows that he needs to keep some cards close to the vest so that when he gets himself into a tight situation, because he's dealing with a maniac, unpredictable guy, you know. So I think that he was in control in the sense that he knew he still had that card to play.
And I think, he's kind of manipulating Monroe. Once he discovers that Rachael is there, well, he's got to get there to stop her. Right. So I think a bit of it is Randall still playing Monroe? Monroe.
Jim says that Randall is setting up Monroe still. I completely agree. Monroe is now on his turf.
Right.
Monroe is going to die.
Right. I was questioning that theory halfway through the episode, but I think by the end of the episode I thought, he's still going to go. They've gathered all of the players, so the bad guy has to go down. I did think it was kind of interesting that at the same time, once Randall did get onto his turf, he was still a little shocked that he couldn't get in.
I think that Grace, I think the nanite people inside, I don't know what else to call them, I think nanite people is fair, have worked with Grace. I think they have not killed Grace, and they have changed the security codes, which makes me wonder if Aaron's going to be able to get in or not. But if Aaron has some sort of super ultimate code that overrides everything that maybe Randall doesn't know, which I'll say that doesn't seem very likely.
Right.
But it's plausible.
Well, I think Monroe knows it, but I don't think Monroe necessarily wanted to use it. Because
you mean Randall?
Wow, yeah, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah, that could be true. But do you think that's why he couldn't get in? Or do you think he was bluffing that he couldn't get in, trying to set something up, part of his plan, or do you think he's legitimately locked out?
I think he was, but then he's like, okay, now that this isn't working, I'm going to have to do this. So maybe the override code resets something, which puts him in a position where he's not the only one that can get in, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, because it overrides everything. But who knows? Yeah, it's an interesting...
Just have to hit Control-Delete on that keyboard. That'll reset the system. All right. Well, that's really all the notes that I had. You know, maybe if a 4 is a little bit low, I didn't even consider revising it. That was my initial gut reaction rating. Maybe 6 is a better rating. I just, like I said, the whole thing where Jim dying and we thought he was significant, and that's getting old for me. And so this episode is kind of taking the punishment for me for that having happened so many times now.
I mean, when it comes to that, I will also say that it makes life mean something more. When somebody that you think is important dies, it means, in a sense, and it's still hard for me to actually agree with this in this show, but it makes every other character feel like they can die at any moment.
Sure it does.
So, I mean, when somebody you think can't die, like if Miles died next week,
that would be significant.
It would be significant. Yeah. So I think what they're trying to do is artificially make that significant.
But I think they're artificially doing it in the sense that we haven't lost a main character outside of Danny, which he was a really minor character. Yeah, was so early on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, maybe. I mean, I don't feel like any of our characters are exempt from dying. I think any of them could be killed at any point. So, okay.
So I think it kind of reinforces that, but at the same time, yeah, it does feel meaningless, and I agree that it is. But sometimes death is meaningless, and the great plans you had are gone. So
yeah,
it kind of shows that. I mean, we thought Miles was going to be a great help, or not Miles, but Jim, and he's nowhere near as helpful as Jim in Wisconsin. So,
and it turns out he's not a doctor; he's a trader,
physicist.
Yep. All right, let's get into quote of the week. All right, so some pretty good lines this week. I think that and the quotes are already up on the website. You know, we delayed the podcast this week, but the new quotes are already up on the website. I put them up on Wednesday like we normally would.
Okay.
So you can go get your vote on right now over at goldenspiralmedia.com/revolution. Click on the polls tab, and you can see the quote of the week for Clue. Let's talk about the winner for last week's episode, which was The Longest Day. That quote was, "You made them."
Miles did a number on you. Okay. All right, somebody's got to say it, so I'll say it. You want to know why Neville and Miles betrayed you? Because you made them. I made them. That's right, you did. They were loyal to you. Miles was loyal to you at first, but you were so paranoid and brutal and unhinged that you pushed them away. Officers dropping around me like flies, and I stuck around. Why? Because I believed we were trying to make a better world. What a fool am I? You know what? You probably will take over the continent, but you're gonna do it alone. And you're gonna suspect everybody around you. And friend, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
All right, so that was the winner for last week. Quote number 1 for this week is real power.
Kill him.
What? You need me.
No. You gave me the pendants and the amplifiers. If I need anything else, I'll ask Mr. Sanborn.
That's a mistake. Sanborn can't get you inside the tower. I can. And trust me, you want in.
Oh, why is that?
Because turning the lights back on is the least it can do. The tower was a skunk works for the DOD. There are things in there the president never knew about. Things that make your drones look like Model Ts. You're dicking around with choppers. And I'm talking about power. Real power. And I can help you get it.
All right.
Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal.
Quote number 2, put on a dress.
Rescuing Rachel, it's a Hail Mary. Chances of us finding her before Monroe does, or us even getting out of there in one piece. Look, you got somebody to go home to, so go home to your wife.
You son of a bitch, you got some nerve saying that to me. She will not take me back because you dragged me into this. So you better put on a dress, because you're all I have left.
Ladies.
Good. What are you doing here?
Foster's orders. She wants a representative on the stupid-ass mission of yours. I ride shotgun.
It's just a happy little bunch, aren't they?
Shotgun.
All right, quote number 3, I have to do this.
There's gotta be another way.
I came to kill Monroe. He is down there, right now.
Even if you pull this off, they will kill you.
How else are you gonna get inside? There is no other choice. I have to do this. You have to let me do this. For Danny. For Ben. Get inside the tower. Turn the power back on.
And the final quote is Travis Bickle.
Tell me, how did you walk out of that militia prison again? I mean, unless you were one of them.
Do I look like a killer to you?
Seen him in all shapes and sizes, friend.
We don't know anything for sure. Right. In the bag, Tom.
Travis Bickle over here. You want me to stow my firearm? I don't think so.
All right. Those are the 4 quotes. Like I said, they're already up on the website. Pause the podcast. Go get your vote on right now over at goldenspiralmedia.com/revolution. Click on the polls tab and cast your vote. All right. Well, Jeremy, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Revolution Podcast. We want to remind you that this is a listener-supported podcast. We do advertise some things at the beginning of the podcast. I think we did HostGator at the beginning of this episode, and HostGator's awesome. We host all of our websites with HostGator. All of my client websites that I build through my web design company, Dramatic Traffic, I host all of those through HostGator. I've been with them a long time. They're wonderful. So you can find the HostGator affiliate link and all of our other affiliate links by going over to goldenspiralmedia.com/support. And we would certainly appreciate you clicking on those before you make purchases at Amazon, if you sign up for Netflix, or buy something from iTunes, any number of other places. Think Geek, you've heard us talk about them, Newegg, all kinds of places over there. We would sure appreciate that. You can also go over there and make a donation. Just, that's really, we get like pennies on the dollar if you buy from Amazon. If you make a donation, that 100% of that goes to help pay the bills here at Golden Spiral Media. We appreciate anything you guys do to help support what we do here. If you want to contact us to send in your feedback, you can do that at area code 304-837-2278. That is the Golden Spiral Media voice feedback line. It's open all the time, 24/7. Go straight to voicemail so you don't have to worry about calling and waking up my kids or anything else like that. You can email us over at feedback@goldenspiralmedia.com. Follow us on Twitter at GSM Podcasts and Facebook.com/Golden Spiral Media. Anything else, Jeremy?
Nothing else, Daryl.
Well, it's been a pleasure podcasting with you. Hopefully you feel better. Not next time, because we're going to do that in just a minute, but the next time, after the next time, hopefully you're feeling a little bit better.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Guys, thanks for joining us for this episode of the Revolution Podcast, and until next time, don't forget that it was actually Olivia in the lab with the revolver.
Shotgun.
The Revolution Podcast and Golden Spiral Media are not associated with Bad Robot Productions, Warner Brothers, or NBC. Golden Spiral Media's use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, and for educational purposes as provided within United States Code Title 17, aka Fair Use. Check out our Revolution blog, live show, and other podcast productions at goldenspiralmedia.com. Copyright 2012, Golden Spiral Media.